Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Frederick Winsness with NetHope, and I am very excited to welcome you to yet another NetHope Solutions Center and No Loss Generation Tech Task Force webinar. Today we're going to be talking about mobile tech that empowers parents to read to children in crisis situations, and we are excited to have Worldreader and iLearn to present on their experiences in the Middle East. Before we get to the speakers, I want to walk through a little bit of housekeeping. We do want to make this as interactive as possible, so please open your chat window. You do that by clicking the third button from the right, or the icon from the right below the slides. And please post your questions in that chat window, and we'll do a Q&A session towards the end of the hour today. We are recording this session, so you should look for a follow-up email with pointers to a posting on the NetHope Solutions Center with the recording and the collateral. So you should feel free to share that with your colleagues and others that may be interested in the topic today. And at the very end of the session, when we close down, you'll see a webinar satisfaction survey. And if you could take a minute or two to answer those questions, that would help us improve this webinar series over time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leila Toplik, who's the No Loss Generation Tech Task Force lead here at NetHope. Leila, take it away.
Thank you, Frederick. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'll just click to my slides. So for those of you who are new to the No Loss Generation Technology Task Force and our monthly webinars, welcome. As you can see, you're joining a cross-sector group, including the UN agencies, global and local NGOs, private sector companies, academic institutions, and a number of others. And we're all focused on meeting the needs of conflict-affected children and youth, including education, employment, participation, and protection. And if you haven't had a chance to join the task force yet, so you can get invited to the future webinars, Frederick will be sharing the link in the chat window. So for those of you, again, who are new, just giving you a heads up that there's a whole set of great resources and contacts available to all of you. So excellent information on program design. We'll be hearing about one of the programs today, technology tools, educational content, and more. We tend to focus on cross-sector collaborations that are technology-enabled. And all of this is documented both in the past webinars, so we've had 19 since 2017, and also some of the reports that are posted on the Solutions Center. So take a look and also share with your network. In terms of the upcoming webinars, so the next webinar is not necessarily an NLG webinar, but it is relevant and open to all at NetHope, at the No Loss Generation, and to all of you. And it's about artificial intelligence and specifically AI for good. As many of you might know, AI has a tremendous potential to transform the way we in the humanitarian sector solve various problems, including access to education and economic opportunities for conflict-affected children and youth. In fact, we are, as part of the NLG Tech Task Force project, we're incubating one project together with the Norwegian Refugee Council, with Microsoft and University College Dublin, that is an AI-powered solution for refugee education. It's a chatbot, and as soon as we're ready, we'll be sharing it broadly. In the meantime, we'll share information that's published in our blog post. So if you're interested in learning more about AI and AI for good, do register for this webinar. So now on to the feature presentation on today's webinar. I'm very excited to have Worldreader and iLearn talking about their work together. This program is focusing on increasing parental engagement in reading to children affected by conflict. And this is through a combination of both direct reading support, free access to high-quality Arabic children's stories on mobile technologies, and more, which we'll hear about shortly. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Nina Wine, the project manager for Worldreader Kids Jordan, and Saddam Sayale, founder and director of iLearn. Over to you, Nina.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Layla. All right, let me see if we can do this without any mishaps. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right in. There we go. There we go. Can you all see that? So I'm just going to go ahead and.
That looks great.
Okay. So yeah, as Rita said, this is a presentation on Worldreader Kids, Tuta. So first I wanted to start off by giving a little bit of background on Worldreader and what it is that we do. Worldreader is a digital reading organization that believes that literacy is transformative. We're all, well aware that there are a host of benefits that are associated with literacy. People who read improve their earning potential, they increase their chance of breaking the cycle of poverty, and they create inner capacity to build healthier and more equitable societies. But despite all of the benefits, there are still 750 million illiterate adults worldwide, and 387 million primary school-age children are not achieving minimum proficiency levels. So Worldreader's solution to this problem is to champion digital reading in underserved communities to create a world where everyone can be a reader. We started back in 2010 with e-readers in sub-Saharan Africa, and since then have worked in both schools and libraries in 16 different countries to promote a culture and the love of reading in the local communities. We also have 2 free mobile reading applications. Our main Worldreader app is available in 47 different countries and contains over 30,000 titles in 43 different languages. And then our Worldreader Kids app, which I'll be discussing throughout the rest of the presentation, is an app with a much smaller and more targeted collection of books, and it's designed to be used by parents and caregivers to read to and with their children. The Worldreader Kids app is used primarily in our pre-reading program, which is one of Worldreader's 4 main programs. And the pre-reading program promotes the idea that parents and caregivers are a child's first teacher, and that with the right tools and support, parents and caregivers can positively change the early outcomes of young children. So the first pre-reading project was launched in India, where we saw that children were not reaching their early childhood developmental milestones, due in part to a lack of a supportive home literacy environment. So Worldreader's solution was to develop a free Worldreader Kids mobile app with a digital collection of around 550 titles in both Hindi and English. And the project used a combination of on-the-ground partners and a behavior change campaign to spread awareness of the app and around the value of reading in order to enable parents to make a difference in their child's learning outcomes. And through the pilot, which ran from 2015 until 2017, 203,000 households were reached, 7,000 of which became frequent readers. So what Read Kids India really showed us is that digital reading on mobile phones is both scalable as well as affordable. And during the time of the Read Kids India pilot, the global refugee crisis was continuing to intensify. And as an organization, Worldreader really wanted to become involved in some way. And from that desire to help, and after studying sort of all the different solutions that we were able to provide, we decided to try piloting Worldreader Kids in Jordan. So there was a whole slew, there's a number of different factors that contributed to the decision to work in Jordan or to pilot in Jordan. First of all, as I'm sure many of you on the call know, Jordan has a very large refugee population. There are around 630,000 registered Syrian refugees, which makes up about 10% of Jordan's entire population. But the number is actually much higher. The government estimates that it's close to 1.4 million when you count both registered and non-registered refugees. The refugees living there have high literacy rates. So before the war, they were measured around 86%. And over 85% of Syrians in Jordan have access to a mobile phone. And also Jordan is a very well-connected country with relatively cheap data. So obviously these were all very important factors that we took into consideration. Although there has been an extraordinary effort by the Jordanian government to provide schooling to all children, there are still numerous barriers to quality education for both refugees and Jordanian children alike. And then lastly, just as we saw in India, there's not a strong culture of reading for pleasure. So reading is often viewed as the job of the teacher, and there isn't that strong responsibility, or parents don't feel that it's their job to read at home for fun with their children. So here's sort of an overview of the whole project. The project name in Arabic is Tuta, and that's essentially the equivalent of "and they lived happily ever after." So many children's stories end with Tuta. The goal of the project is to improve early learning and socio-emotional development of children aged 0 to 12. And it's a 2-year project. So we received funding in March of 2017, and we will wrap up this phase in the spring of 2019. During that time, we will reach 50,000 households, and both refugees and also vulnerable Jordanians. And we have acquired 250 titles of really high-quality Arabic literature for children, so children's storybooks. And we also have a small sub-collection of psychosocial stories and also an English sub-collection. The age range, and I should point out the age range, this is not an app for children. It's an app for parents to read with their children. So we are targeting parents with children aged 0 to 12. The children are the ultimate beneficiaries, but we work directly with the parents. But this is an app, for parents to read with their children, not an app to give and have children read directly from. And we're working in Jordan, of course, mainly in Amman, but we also are working in areas outside of Amman, like with Ayman, who's located in Jerash. Excuse me. So there's essentially 4 key components of the project. The first 2 are sort of what we're offering, which is a free mobile app and a digital library of really high quality content. And then the last 2 are how we reach our target beneficiaries. So we do that through on-the-ground partners and also a widespread, primarily digital awareness campaign in order to attract readers to the app and also just to raise awareness around the value of reading. So we're going to walk through some of the different components. Start off with the app. So of course the product is the free Worldreader Kids mobile app. I should point out that it's only on Android, and that's because early on the research showed us that the overwhelming majority of our target users are Android and not iOS users, and that held true in Jordan, and it definitely held true in India as well. It has a very simple and easy to use interface, and that's because we know that a lot of our target users are not overly tech savvy, so we want it to be very easy to just open up and navigate. Version 3.0 of the app, which is our current version, is the result of a very in-depth human-centered design process, which we did in Delhi with the HCD firm Quickstand. The app itself is very lightweight. It doesn't take up a lot of space on a user's phone, and books can be downloaded to be read later offline. And that was really important for us because it means that the app can be used in areas that don't have good connectivity, so in schools, refugee camps, or just in poorly connected houses. It's freely available for download on the Google Play Store, either by searching for Tuta in Arabic or Worldreader Kids. At this time, the Arabic version of the app is not available outside of Jordan, but we are going to be opening up to other geographies shortly. So if there is anyone on this call or who's listening who's interested in using Tuta outside of Jordan, definitely let me know. And you can find more information on the link that I put here, tutatuta.org. I'm going to show a short app demo. It's in Arabic. So when you start off, you're on the home screen, and users can choose to filter books by language or age. Then when scrolling down, users see a variety of different bookshelves, such as popular and short stories, in order to enable them to find relevant titles easily. Clicking on a book takes you to a screen with a description of the book, and then from there, users go directly into the book itself to start reading. And I should point out, our content team really made a huge effort to make sure that the content was optimized for online reading while staying true to the original layout of the book. And you can also, I didn't show this in the demo, but you can also search for specific titles or authors, or you can find books in one of the 6 categories that we have. So the second component is the digital library, and of course, being a digital reading organization, the content that we offer is really a crucial part of this project. For this project, we acquired 250 really high quality and engaging children's stories from well-known publishers and authors in the region. The first batch of stories we had reviewed by an independent consultant, as well as, of course, our on-the-ground partners, in order to ensure that they were relevant and really appropriate to the context of the project. I mentioned before the psychosocial sub-collection. So there's a lot of interest from both beneficiaries as well as implementing organizations in psychosocial and social and emotional content. And these are stories that can promote healing and empathy among children, and also stories dealing with refugee-related issues. So we do currently have a small collection of psychosocial titles on the app, but we really want to expand that and are also looking for a partner to help us test it. I will touch on that a little bit more at the end of the presentation. And then finally, we do have an English sub-collection of bilingual and English stories in order to enable parents to support their children's English learning. And this also came from a demand, a request from our target users to have access to English titles. So it's a really, really high quality collection, and it's received a lot of very positive feedback from both our partners as well as our users. So how do we actually get these tools into the hands of our target audience? We do that in 2 different ways. The first is through our implementation, our partners that are on the ground working with beneficiaries. Worldreader is a partner-driven organization. So Tuta is supported and made possible by all the organizations you see here. We are lucky enough to work with the implementation partners that you see listed on the left. So we're working with Queen Rania Foundation, Geo Cultural Center, iLearn, right here with me, Jordan River Foundation, and Children's Museum Jordan. I've listed out some of our really wonderful publishing partners. And in terms of M&E, so we're supported in our M&E work by local M&E firm Integrated Solutions. And the majority of the funding for the project was received from the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, as well as some funding from the Wilkie family. And lastly, we do interpartner with one of the main Jordanian telcos, and we hope to sign an agreement in the next month or so. So that's a pending partnership that's also very important to the project. This slide is a bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to give an overview of the different types of implementation models that we're using currently by our partners, and it gives you a little bit an idea in numbers of how many parents we aim to reach through each model. So the first model is sort of the customized model, which is what we're doing with Geo Cultural Center and iLearn, where we co-design the intervention with our partners, since they know their communities and beneficiaries the best. It's a very high-touch intervention, so this is working with mothers in particular. They attend 8 sessions with a facilitator over the course of 4 months. And Saddam is actually going to go over how the program that we're doing with iLearn is structured, so I'll let him explain in more detail right after this slide. There's also organizations out there that are already working with parents in themes of parental engagement or promoting reading for pleasure, and those organizations see the value out of just using Tuta in their programming. And so that's what we're doing with Jordan River Foundation. They have an existing Better Parenting program, and they just added a small module about Tuta. So that's sort of an integrated model. And we also, of course, have a distribution model, which is, again, partners that work with, we have similar goals, spread awareness around Tuta. So this can be through flyers, this can be through posters, through social media. It's a very light touch, but it does help get the word out. And then lastly, we do have this school-based, we're working with the Humania Foundation and the Ministry of Education to use teachers as a means to encourage parents to read frequently at home with their children. So we won't be actually using the app in schools, but we'd look to test to see if we can use teachers as sort of a conduit to encourage parents to read at home. So teachers would be assigning a book a week for parents to read at home from the app. And so it's my pleasure now Suzanne's going to sort of walk through a little bit about what iLearn does, and then explain in more detail the interventions that they're doing with Tuta. So I'm going to slide the computer over him, and here's Suzanne.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tuta. I'm the founder and director of iLearn. A little bit of the background of iLearn. We started iLearn in Souk camp, which is a Palestinian refugee camp in the north of Jordan. The reason we founded iLearn is in our theory of change in local communities in Jordan, especially if it's a host community for refugees or a marginalized community because of the distance from the capital or the lack of resources that exist inside these communities, we started to think on how can we empower and deliver opportunities for children, community, and the youth. So what we started is a model where in 2012 that operates on activating the roles of youth inside their local community and disrupting their usual role inside their community. So instead of a university student just going to the university and coming back to their homes, we added a new set of social norm inside their community that they're obliged to give a specific volunteering hours back to the community. Also, we started partnering with local CPOs to disrupt also the norms of how they operate in usual basis. So instead of being always dependent on aid and they have usually amazing physical spaces, but it's not used for the benefit of the community. So what we started is we partnered with these local CBOs and we created what we call Space for Knowledge. That's where we bring teachers, the youth, and the children from the same community into one group, and where they start learning 4 specific topics and also other extra ones. They start learning programming and computer skills. The second topic, they start learning English in a very practical way, very interactive. The third topic they start learning is arts and theater, which to help children who are under stress, who are, they feel, they're either on the edge of dropping out of school or their academic achievements is not going up. So we try to help them with that. And then the fourth thing is we give them life skills. The topic of life skills is very important because it helps these children with coping skills. Meaning if they live in a very rough environment, economically or socially, or they are subject to abuse in any way possible, the life skills curricula helps them to develop certain skills that help them to cope with themselves emotionally and physically, and also to be strong. It's all about maintaining the core inside. And we work with parents as well by engaging them in what are we teaching their kids. Unfortunately, it's a reality. What we do is most of the parents that we work with, especially mothers, they're illiterate. The reason is usually because they get married in a young age, so they leave school in a very young age. The second reason is the economy. So usually school is not a priority especially for females. So what we do is we engage the mothers indirectly into our curricula by putting it in a framework that we're going to just show you what we're teaching your kids. So the mother, she becomes the child herself. And through our intervention, the mother starts, influencing the ecosystem or the environment that her child is in. And she starts meeting other mothers, so they start creating that community under one roof. And this is our goal, is to create that supportive ecosystem for different parts of the community, the youth, the children, the community, the mothers, where they all come under one roof in one purpose, which is, to support one another and also deliver the opportunities that we're offering beyond the space. Since 2012, we have expanded from soup camp into 8 communities, and we established 8 knowledge spaces around Jordan. Our headquarters is in Jerash. Jerash is a governance, the closest to Amman. Actually, it's around 50 kilometers away from Amman, and so we operate from there, and we expanded to the east, north, and central. And as you can see from the slide, we have reached thousands of youth, children, and community members. And we're hoping, with every year we're expanding to a new community. We want to be that, scalability is very important to us. So that's what we're working on. So since we met with Tuta and Worldreader, we've been very excited about how to engage mothers on a much higher level to influence the ecosystem and the environment of their children. And as I told you before, usually parenthood is missing in our system. We just assume that having a child is enough, and we can raise the child without any kind of research or knowledge and so on. And parents or communities, they transmit knowledge from generation to generation, and sometimes this information do not fit the generation that we're in. So to engage mothers on a higher level, plus with our engagement, we partnered with Tuta, and starting in September 2018 with a pilot project where it works in 2 cycles. Each cycle is 20 mothers per cycle, and each cycle will last for 4 months with follow-up sessions every 2 weeks. So to make it cool and also to make mothers super excited about it, and also I believe in engagement. So to engage them, we created a wall inside our spaces where we will put a portfolio kit where they can actually share what are they working with their kids, artwork, maybe a quote, something they liked, and they add it to their portfolio kit. And every time we do a session, they start sharing from this kit. And like I would consider Jordan culture is very special because if a mother sees another mother doing more advanced, that motivates her to be in the same level or in a higher level. So that's something we're very excited about. And now, like we're starting in Jerash in the city center, but we're hoping in starting next year we're gonna expand and work more in the different areas that we work with Tuta and Worldreader. And now with Nina.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sadan, and obviously we're super excited to work with Ivan and excited to learn and hopefully be able to expand and work in more of the areas in the next year. And I should also mention, I forgot to mention before, right now, a lot of our interventions that we are doing on the ground with partners are focused on mothers, but the app is in no way obviously restricted to mothers, and so fathers are also key in changing behaviors in the home. And there's also grandmothers or youth are also frequently the ones that are reading at home to their children, so to their younger siblings. And we saw that a lot in India. So we definitely, it's open to everyone, and we do really want to start in the future to include fathers, caretakers, siblings, etc. So just the last sort of pillar, last component is the awareness campaign. We have that right here. So we did an awareness campaign in Jordan. In Jordan, our user acquisition strategy was to be promoted through Facebook and the Google Display Network. And this is because these are the channels that we found to be the most effective when we did the same user acquisition campaign in India. So we recorded a TV commercial, which was promoted on Facebook. I didn't want to take the risk of trying to mess around with technology and put it here, but you do see a screenshot of it right here in the bottom with the little girl and the dinosaur. And I've also linked it to this presentation. And it's a cute video. It's worth a watch. We got a lot of really positive likes and comments about it on social media. The audio from that commercial was also made into a radio jingle, which aired for a month on one of Jordan's main radio stations during a popular morning program. Our main source of outreach in the campaign was really digital, and the print collateral was mainly used only with our partners. Again, this is what we learned from India, that digital is much more effective and wide-reaching. But I did include some of the flyers and posters that we've made. So one problem that we did encounter with the campaign is that targeting our key beneficiaries, so targeting a refugee population, is not at all easy or straightforward. Due to data privacy, digital and social platforms are no longer allowed to target by nationality. So what our media agency helped us with is basically targeting was done by a variety of different factors. It was geographical area, gender, interest, and behaviors. So, for instance, someone looking online who is located in a lower-end area with parental-related behaviors and who is interested in issues related to refugees would have been considered a target beneficiary and would most likely have been shown in the ad. But that was something that we did struggle with the campaign. The campaign ran for 2 months. We had 1 month of really testing and optimizing, and then 1 month of the full campaign. And it just wrapped up towards the end of September. So it's a little bit too early to really know the impact on frequent readership, but we do have high-level numbers, which I've laid out in this slide. From the campaign, we got over 50,000 app downloads. There were over 200,000 views of the commercials that I mentioned earlier on YouTube. We received really a lot of movement on Facebook, over 900 reactions or comments on the commercial that was also on Facebook, and we estimate that around 1 million users reached or saw the Facebook ad. An example of one of the ads is to the left. And again, it's a little bit too early to be able to calculate the cost per reader, but we can calculate the cost per download. So in India, just to give a reference, it was about 30 cents per download. In Jordan, the cost is a little bit higher, 45 cents per download. So, the main acquisition campaign is over, but we're definitely looking at new channels to advertise, to get the word out there in order to help us contribute to continue to acquire new users and also to increase user engagement. One of the new channels that we're testing that we haven't used before is promotion through blogs. So we're going to plan to run a campaign on a popular mother's blogging page. And we'll also continue to really look for ways to target refugee communities and get the word out there. We do have a system in place on the app which allows us to send push notifications and in-app messages. And we're experimenting with different automated campaigns in order to encourage frequent reading and to prevent drop-off. And lastly, as I mentioned before, we're in discussions with the mobile network operator, which will help us reach new users and also increase user engagement. So how do we measure progress? Our M&E plan was developed by a local firm, Integrated Solutions, and we'll be using a mix of CAP surveys, so knowledge, attitudes, and practice surveys, case studies, and focus groups in order to gain insight into the drivers and barriers around reading behavior. We also use unique links, UTM links, in both the digital campaign as well as with partners, which will allow us to really accurately identify the acquisition source of users and allow us to gain insight into the reading habits of different user cohorts. And then finally, we plan on triangulating our back-end data, our back-end reading data, with the survey data to really ensure that we're getting the full picture. Challenges. So I like this slide. I definitely identify with this picture. I assume that a lot of people on the call do. So this is a new geography for us and a new language. So of course it came with its own set of challenges. On the product side, at the very beginning, we did have problems getting Arabic to display properly across different devices. From the content side, and I have heard this a lot actually on other webinars, it's difficult to digitize Arabic text. It's more complicated than we had originally thought. Our conversion company struggled a lot with it, and internally on our end, it did require a lot more rounds of Q&A than we're used to. So this extended the timeline for getting content uploaded onto the app. In terms of programming, the school-based pilot that we plan on doing means that, working through schools, we had to get all the content vetted through the Ministry of Education, which is a time-consuming process. And additionally, we don't have, the content is not ours, it of course belongs to the publishers, so we're not able to make any changes at all to the content, and so that did add a lot of additional time. Internet is essentially blocked in camps, in refugee camps in Jordan, and so obviously that's not an ideal setting to promote a home digital reading tool. And the link to user acquisition source, which I mentioned earlier, which is what we use both in our campaign as well as for distribution partners, it's not always easy. It seems like something that would be very straightforward and a really easy way for us to identify where users came in from, but we have struggled with that. And then just generally in the campaign, it's difficult to attribute users to specific acquisition sources. And we were also, as I mentioned, it was hard to be sure that we were actually reaching our target users. Moving forward, we will continue to work with the ministry in order to get their buy-in and support. It's obviously crucial to this project. And we're really excited to be working towards the goal of piloting in schools in the near future. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're opening up the app to new geographies, and we also are in discussion to whitelist the app so that it would be able to be accessible in camps. So how to get involved? If there's any organizations working with parents and caregivers who feel that Tuta would add value to the programming, definitely reach out. We're always interested in speaking to new partners and getting to know the work that other organizations are doing. And as I said, we are opening up. The app will be available outside of Jordan. So partners located anywhere, we would love to discuss. We're also actively looking for organizations in Jordan who are working with parents and children in psychosocial programming to help us test the psychosocial collection and also to design activities that are associated with the content. And then lastly, any organization that has a strong social media presence among refugee and vulnerable populations can always help spread the word about this free tool. So I've put our contact details at the end, at the bottom of this slide. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. And thanks everyone for listening. I think now we'll take some questions from the audience.
Well, thank you so much, Nia and Saddam, for your excellent presentation. This truly is an excellent example of collective impact within the sector, and really thank you for providing a great overview of the comprehensive program that you have put together, including how you're using technology, but also addressing a very important point around how to even reach and engage your core target audience. So thanks again for that. We have a number of questions, and Frederick and I will take turns asking those questions. That said, you're welcome to add new questions in the chat window, and we'll get to as many as possible in the next 19 minutes. So Nia, the first question is for you. It's regarding the content, so the reading content. Can anyone contribute to the reading content? And then also, is that content complementary to the local, in this case, Jordanian school curriculum, especially for the older kids, the ages 7 to 12?
Thanks, Leila. Yeah, that's a really great question. So the content, so to address the first question, definitely if there are, the content that we use is, as I mentioned, sourced from publishers and authors in the region, but we are always looking for new, really quality content. So if there is content, Arabic content, that someone would like to contribute, I would love to hear more. I'm not sure who asked the question, but yeah, please do reach out and let us know a little bit more about what you were thinking. So we do, yeah, we're really promoting storybooks. Essentially what we have on the app right now are storybooks. And so, yeah, if someone feels that they have content to take it out, that would be wonderful. In terms of aligning with the curriculum, right now, you know, the initial focus was really just to get these high-quality books into the hands of parents. That's what we wanted to do at this initial stage. And so we haven't yet aligned with the curriculum. When we do the school pilot, there is interest in getting complementary stories that the parents could read at home. So complementary stories, working with teachers to understand their lesson plans, and then adding stories that would help them in the classroom and complement what they're teaching. We're also most likely going to be digitizing some of the text, the ministry text, and that's because a lot of parents they're not able to actually get the texts, purchase the books at home and use them. So we'll be doing that as well. So, you know, in terms of strict alignment, we haven't reached that yet, but we are, you know, it really is about giving parents a collection of books to read at home. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. So for the first one, just for anyone who's interested in contributing reading materials, and you mentioned both Arabic and English, to email you directly, and your email is posted in the chat window. Yeah. Frederick, what's the next question?
Yeah, I think, Nina, again, and Saddam, thank you very much for this super inspiring content. This is great. Then the next one, you touched on it, but I think it's worth repeating. The question came in, do you need to be online at all times with Worldreader app, or can you download content and consume offline?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really an important one. So, yeah, the content can be downloaded offline. If someone is connected to the internet, they can download the app and download the books, and then read when they're not connected. So yes, it is available for offline reading, and that was something that with this version we were really insistent on having. So our product team did a great job, and it's 100% functional offline.
That's great to hear. A related question. Yeah, the related question is actually for Saddam regarding technology. So as Nina noted, there is a quite high penetration of technology and devices, but what are you providing devices to mothers that don't have them, and how are you ensuring that those devices might be used for supporting their children?
So for island spaces, we have laptops or computers, desktops available. Not in all spaces, but some spaces. So Tuta has a web version, especially for mothers who can't access, maybe they don't have smartphones. But the majority of mothers that they come for the sessions, they have a single Android phone that helps them to access the app. But definitely, it's something that will come up in the future once we expand more. I mean, the solution would be a lot easier if they can access it on web version. And as I said before, iLearn spaces are spaces for knowledge. So it's accessible, it's open. So even if a mother, want to get out of the home environment or to get away from the pressure, she always can come to our tech room, where it has computers and free internet, where she can browse and maybe read a story for her kids. But the idea is, with the follow-up sessions and the sessions that we are doing, they're learning also storytelling, and this is very important because some of the mothers, as I said before, they inherit things from their previous generations, their mothers, their grandmothers, and even the fathers. They have stories but they don't really know how to share it. So there's the specific skills that we're working with Integrated and Tuta is to help these mothers to obtain the skill of storytelling and feel confident to share it with their children through the app and offline as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly what Saddam said. We do have an online version, so for mothers who don't, well, sorry, I should say, users who don't have smartphones, there isn't an available way to go online and get that. It's not available on desktop, but it is available on web-enabled mobile phones. And in terms of, right now we're at the very beginning stage where we're really targeting a specific group. So we are targeting parents or caretakers that have access to a mobile phone. In the future, we will look to how we can include users who may not have a mobile phone, but right now we're really in the beginning phases where we're going to get as much feedback as possible from a very specific user profile. So with the partners we're working with, we're really trying to make sure that that's the user profile that we're running these sessions with in order just to make the most of this initial phase of the project. Well, great question, thanks.
Thank you very much. Speaking of partners, there was a question that came in about your partnership with a local mobile network operator. What role do you see a partner like that playing, and what's the value proposition to them?
That's a really good question. I wonder if this is someone from a mobile network operator. No, it's a great question. There's a lot of different values that they can add. Obviously, just getting the word out there, but we really do envision sort of a partnership where we would be able to access first of all, they would help us target, the MNOs really do have a lot of information about their user base. So that's where we really see the power of partnering with a network operator, because they would really help us hit our target audience, something that we, as I explained, weren't really able to do with 100% accuracy in the digital acquisition campaign. So for us, that's a huge value add. There's access to that network, but it is a partnership where we would be able, if we do get readers or new users from any sort of campaign that the mobile network operator ran, we then, what we want to do is engage users. So it really is all about getting people to come back and use their phone and form this habit of digital, reading online. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. I could go into that, and I'd definitely love to talk about it more if anyone has more questions. But there's a whole range. But that's sort of the initial idea, the initial thinking behind that.
Just as a quick follow-up to that, NetHope and our members are actually forming quite a strong relationship with one of the local mobile network operators in Uganda, and would be interesting to see, if there's a way of providing value add in that type of relationship. So we can take that offline. Leila, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And this is another question for you, and actually related to your Geo Expansion, and specifically also leveraging the knowledge that you have and your experience with working with conflict-affected populations in the Middle East. And there's a question around potentially your plans for expanding Worldreader programming to other refugee and migrant hotspots. As many of you might know, the total number of displaced Venezuelans could actually eventually surpass the 6 million people who have fled the Syrian civil war. So then there's Africa, as Frederick mentioned, with Uganda and then Bangladesh. So if you could just say more about what your plans are in terms of future geographies, and what types of partners you might be looking for in order to bring this type of programming to other geographies.
Sure. Yeah, and that's another great question. So I really think that the value add of Tuta, this is a free application. So any organization out there is welcome and open to use it in their own programming. And that's what we've seen here in Jordan. Worldreader doesn't come in and do their own programming. We really look for experts who are working in the community, who know their community, and who see the value add and are looking for a tool like this to work closely with them to gain a lot of learning, and that's what we've done in Jordan, to improve the app and then improve the way that we present the app to the users on the ground. So part of the reason that we're planning on opening up the app to other geographies is because we want other partners that are working in conflict-affected communities to be able to use it and to be able to use it as they see fit. In terms of going into other countries and actually doing programming there, of course, we are very, I think we're now in a good place to perhaps start thinking about going into other countries in the Middle East. But again, right now, the most important thing is to gain as many learnings as we can from Jordan to really establish ourselves here and continue to find partners working on the ground in Jordan, and then continue thinking of ways for us to be able to help strengthen and support partners in other locations who would like to use the app in their existing programming.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a follow-up question. This one is related to the age group. And again, in Jordan, you said you're focusing on age group 0 through 12. In other parts of the world, and also in terms of your future plans, do you intend to just reach beyond the age of 12?
That's another great question. I didn't actually touch on the age range. So in India, the age range was 0 to 8. And again, this is an app. What we're really aiming for here is that engagement at home with the parent or caretaker. So it's for the parent or caretaker to read to or with their child. And so, yeah, in India it was 0 to 8. We raised the bar a little bit in Jordan to 12, and that's because we know that due to the conflict, there are a lot of children that are reading below their age level. And so we wanted to get something that's really, there's actually not a lot of, and we definitely would like to get more of it, is high-low content. The content that's appropriate for an older reader in terms of the content, but the actual reading level is a little bit lower. So I think, that for what we want the app to do, for the purpose it serves, is just really this interaction between parent and child. Sorry, I keep saying parent, between caretaker and child. 12 is most likely the upper range, but we do have the other app. We have on the other app that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation has over 30,000 books in 43 different languages. So that also is a free app, and that's open and can be used in a variety of countries. And so that would be if there are people who are looking for digital content for older readers, that would be a great alternative. But I definitely encourage people to download that. It's the Worldreader app.
One thing to note, and this is something that we've done together with you and with support from Microsoft, we made your content available to displaced populations that are currently in Greece, so leveraging both the devices as well as your extensive library of content in different languages. Frederick, over to you for the next one.
Personally, I've actually downloaded both Worldreader and Worldreader for Kids on my Android phone, and it's fascinating. I am browsing it as we speak. There was a question that came in said regarding user acquisition in your campaign strategy. What were the components that you were able to target? You mentioned geographic, but what were some other factors?
Yeah, that's another really great question. And so the media campaign, the acquisition campaign, was run by Ogilvy, which is the local office here. And we really tried to, we worked hard with them to get a deep understanding of how they were targeting. And that is really what they said, that sort of at this point, industry standard, that's what can be done. So it was that, I can go back, but it was that combination of sort of geographic location and then interests, so searches, related interests. And I believe it was also they could sort of target the profile of the user. And that, I believe, and this was something that we continually were discussing with them, is pretty much at this point, if I understand, sort of the best that can be done when really trying to target vulnerable and refugee populations, just because there are a lot of data protection laws out there with good reason. And so at this point, that's another reason why we're really exploring now Facebook pages and definitely looking to find partners with really strong social media presence in order to target digitally the beneficiaries that we know they have contact with. But yeah, that was a really tough point. And on that slide, I believe, let me make sure I listed it out, and if not, please feel free to ping me, and I can send an email with the actual list that they provided us of how they were targeting.
Great, thanks, Nina. A lot of great questions coming up. So we'll just take 2 more questions and then wrap up. If there are any additional questions, definitely contact Nina and Saddam, and we'll share that in an email. Nina, another question for you. It's related to the format, and specifically, has Worldreader considered audiobooks or maybe hybrid with text and audio?
Definitely. That question comes up a lot. And definitely, of course, that's something that would be fantastic for users with very low literacy, or not. I mean, it's a really great feature. And so, yes, that is something that we're certainly considering. And that will be hopefully coming in the near future. We're definitely interested in exploring that more.
Fantastic. Let's take 1, maybe 2 more questions here that could be quick. The next question was, what's your sustainability strategy in terms of adding new content and driving ongoing engagement?
That's another really great question. So at this point, what we're really looking, this project, as I mentioned, was a 2-year project. We acquired the books that we aimed to acquire, and now what we're really doing is looking to see what's performing well, really making popular the books that are performing really well, and then speaking with authors and publishers in the region to see if anyone's interested. There's a lot of interest in this project, and so we did get a lot of donations, I have to say, from publishers. In terms of continuing this on, we, having a library of 250 books, it's a big library, and that's not to say in any way that we don't want to add more to it. But I think that we do, with 250 books, we're in a good position, and we will definitely just continue to try to continue with this project, or not this project, but get more funding to stay on in Jordan and to acquire new, more relevant books. And also, as I mentioned, we are still looking to acquire more books in the psychosocial and social and emotional learning, which is a huge interest to beneficiaries. And we've been out getting preliminary feedback from mothers who are using the app, and there's a really strong desire to have these social and emotional learning and psychosocial texts. So we would probably look for funding to continue that.
Excellent. We're going to squeeze in 1 last question here, and Lily, you want to take it?
Yep, absolutely. So it's actually for Saddam and somewhat related to this discussion about sustainability. Saddam, so you talked about I Learn knowledge spaces, which is very interesting. If you could just say more about whether they're being used for programming, for other types of programming in those communities. So you mentioned there are 8, and then if you're planning to open up more spaces.
Thank you. It's a great question. This is what we been thinking about since the beginning of the year, is how can we expand iLearn model beyond Jordan, but also how are we going to partner with the different, NGOs, private sector. But just to give you a little bit of how do we operate. So our sustainability model comes from the private sector in Jordan, and we have great relationship with the private sector in Jordan and abroad, and they've been supporting our progress. For example, the young people who live, especially youth, who live in these rural areas that we operate in, usually their chances of employment is very low. So what we did is we partnered with startups, the public sector, and we partnered with different stakeholders who are interested in the development of rural areas in Jordan. What they did is they started training and given internships for these young people, and we used that as an exchange of their volunteering hours. So instead of the young people, paying for these trainings, for example, Zain as a telecom company, they come and train our young people in exchange of these trainings that help them in their employment, which are very special and very targeted to them. They give us volunteering hours, which help us, to sustain our programs and the spaces. So usually people approach us, in Egypt, Libya, and even in Syria on if we can train their staff. And this is our new model that we'll start next year, is we train their staff for around 3 to 4 days on how to use the curriculum and lessons learned throughout the experiences in the different communities that we worked in, and help them and shadow them, maybe online or even through phone calls, as more or less as a mentorship program, and help them, to establish iLearn space within their own community. So there's a high interest by INGOs and local organizations in the MENA, and we're looking into how can we do that next year. So if anybody have more questions regarding our model, feel free to email me, or and then we can maybe Skype and talk more about our model.
That's fantastic to hear, Saddam. I'm so glad we asked that question. I know we're 3 minutes over, but thank you for this overview, and clearly a great opportunity to also learn from you on this specific model. Well, thank you, Nina and Saddam, for sharing your partnership and your work with the NLG Task Force community, and thank you all for joining us and for a very engaging conversation. Over to you, Frederick, to close the webinar.
Oh, thank you very much, and thanks both Nina and Saddam and Leila for putting on this series of webinars. You will be receiving a follow-up email with the links to both the content and the recording here, as I mentioned earlier, and you'll get a chance to, again, be reminded of Nina and Saddam's email addresses so you can contact them directly. Please take a minute or so to answer our webinar satisfaction poll. That'll pop up in your browser. And with that, I just wish everybody a great rest of your day. We'll be back in touch soon with additional webinars. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, as I said.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.